So after creating my um, green class style here, um, you will see that it does not apply to the H1 on my page. So what I need to do then, now that I've created the class here, I need to apply it to the header here. Now with Dreamweaver, there's usually like 5 or 6 different ways to do something. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the H1, and in earlier versions, if you select it in the designer view, it does not select the tags. So a couple of things could happen here. Since this is a new version, I'll just see with you what happens. I've got a new class style, and that would be green down here on this list. If you're in the HTML view, this is actually a little bit of a better interface. Under class, you'll see green, and it actually has the attributes listed. So you can kind of tell what the style does. I'm going to click that, and oh, well, this is good because in older versions, a lot of times the version of Dreamweaver would just add a span tag, which was annoying. But in this case, H1 class equals green. Boom. There you go. Green. Now, if I were to create another H1 tag here, and I'm doing this up in the code view because if I hit return in the design view, it would automatically add an H1 class equals green again. And so this time, this is a blue header, like that. And as you can see, that without any style added is then goes the default color. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a div tag. Now, when we come to div tags, you can go up to your insert div. This is actually fairly easily accessible. You can also go to your insert panel here, and as you can see, in older versions of Dreamweaver, it was a little bit hidden, but now the new versions of Dreamweaver, the div tag is really, really present. I'm going to click create a new div tag, and you're going to see a new interface. And I have class and ID. This is from the old versions of Dreamweaver. This is where you didn't have to type in the dots. So in this particular case, I'm going to create an ID, and I'm going to call it header, like that. And then I'm going to create a new CSS rule. And this is also from the old version. See how we have this nice little drop down on all 4 style types. And then down here, this document only. I think at this point you're probably scratching your head going, what the heck? Why is there 2 completely different ways to do this? And you can write your fellow Adobe representatives and ask them, because to me it's like what they're doing is they're giving you 5 different ways to do the same thing, and I think that just makes it more confusing. Let's just stick to one way, folks. Well, I'm going to show you this real briefly because I'm going to click. This works if you know the basic idea. If you have the basic structure, then you understand how all this works. So I'm going to click OK, and in this case, I'm going to, now I'm only creating a £, and I'm just going to create color, and let's add a new color. Let's say purple. All right. Hit that OK. Color equals purple. Click OK, and click OK again. And as you can see in my style, now I have the £, header. Now if I go back to my designer panel, what we were working with before, there you go, there's your header. I could have done it that way too. I could have added a new one and then typed in £= header. Can I get rid of this transitions panel? I'll just close that out. Good, that helps. Gives me a little bit more space, and I'll just pull my selectors up here. So I could have typed header down there as well, and I would have gotten the same thing, and then go over here, same thing. It's one thing or another, however you just want to do it. Personally, my personal recommendation is stick to one way of doing it. You won't get so confused. All right, now with this div tag here, if I created an h1 in here, oops, I'm creating an h1 here. What happens? Okay, oops. How did that happen? I said header is equal purple. Why is this blue? Well, if I did something like this, where I took the ID equals header and pulled it down to the h1 equals header, before I click there, what do you think it's going to be? Purple. Now, why? I'm going to go back a little bit. Why the heck did that happen? Why am I saying inside the pound sign, the header ID area, and I said it's purple? Why is this h1 blue? Because the h1 tag comes closest to the object here before the header tag. So cascading styles works that way. If the h1 is saying h1 is blue, that's what that's saying there. Let me see if see, that's blue. That over imposes the ID equals header. Now, how do I, again, like I said, I could say, okay, instead of div ID equals header, I'm going to say h1 ID equals header, and there I get my purple. So it can work that way. Another way you can make this work is, let's say the h1s inside my header divs are going to be a certain color. Then I'm going to create what's called a compound style. And now Dreamweaver helps us in this. When I click, because my cursor was clicked inside there, it automatically generates that compound style for me. There it is, pound header h1. That means inside any element that has the ID of header, any h1 inside that will then have that style applied to it. So I'm going to select that and then click that, and then I can determine my color. What have I not used yet? Oh, let's do some kind of orange there. Boom. So I think probably the most confusing thing about this whole thing is your amount of options and the number of different ways to do a certain thing. And so so the basic idea is, I'm going to go into code view right here. What you need to know to understand all this is this part right here. In spite of all the Dreamweaver, helpers and interfaces and all that kind of thing, you basically have to know the 4 different style types and how they work. The tag style, the class style, the ID style, and the compound style. By the way, I could do something like this. See how I have a dot there instead of a pound sign? That also works. Now, to apply that, then I would then go down here and type in class equals green. And of course, that works. Well, oops. You gotta make sure you don't make any errors. Notice how green H1 with the orange also works as well. So that's what you have to wrap your head around. You have to, and again, I really recommend downloading this, keeping this as a companion guide to you, so that you just have to know, this syntax here to use the CSS designer, so that when you click add selector, you know what the heck you're typing here. And then you you can proceed along those lines. If, however, you really just don't want to do that, you can always use the CSS selector. You can add an inline style. Let's take a look at that real quick here. I'm just going to add H1. This is an inline style. And this is going to be real tempting to you. I'm going to select that, inline style, targeted rule, new inline style, and then I'm going to change that color up. Let's just take the alpha down a little bit on that. Notice that didn't work because to do the alpha down on that, you have to go to RGBA because you have the alpha setting here. You don't have it in your hexadecimal value. So now I'm going to take it around 50%, and actually to see that I have to go into live view. So inline style will look like this. It's actually the attribute style in the H1 tag, and it's actually added right on the line. And this will overrule any other style, document style or external style sheet. And then of course there's always the other thing you can do where you can go to Insert, Div, and then let Dreamweaver do all the work for you, and then look at that new interface that we looked at earlier. Lots of different ways to do stuff, and you just have to kind of get used to that.